Welcome back to the Vinyl Word Podcast. As always, I'm Steve Beach.
And I'm Brian Mayer. Hello!
And I'm Eric Evans.
And we have our beautiful producer, Cameron Beach, sitting across from me here today, who is helping out. You can say hi, Cameron.
Hello!
All right.
I think he was asleep.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, we have to do that every now and then. Have to nudge him and wake him up. Or,
Poke him with a stick.
Yeah. or get him off his phone from playing Pokemon Go. Anyway, so this is a kind of a special episode. Well, before I get into that, let me back up and say you can contact us by email, vinylword22@gmail.com. We are on Facebook. We are on X.
Also, the carrier pigeon system kind of flew the coop, so we're not doing that anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Unfortunate.
So also on the episode summaries, wherever you listen, whether it's Spotify, Apple, Amazon, or whatever, there's a little link that says text us. You can simply tap that. Before we get into our next record, let's check in with our friend Charlie Cutler.
It seems to me that... Oh, hello, this is Charlie Cutler.
What's up, Chuck?
Let's just talk for a couple of minutes.
Okay.
It seems to me if a man has a trade and he works at it, he'll stay busy.
Yes.
I'm reminded
What happens
of
if he
Mr.
swaps
Bascom
that for
Blacksmith.
something else? What's it called?
Nobody could
like
shoe a horse
exchange?
as well or as
Barter.
fast as he could.
Yeah.
But when the automobile started taking the place of the horse, Mr. Bascom
He killed all
kept
his
losing
horses in anger and
customers one after
sadness.
the other.
Them cars took their jobs.
Finally, he moved over to the county seat where he worked. But then a new mayor was elected, and he closed
Make
the
horses
racetrack.
great again.
Mr. Bascom had to move again.
Nay.
This time he went to a nearby city where some of the wealthier folks played polo once in a while.
They also got polo, and they all
And
died.
that was just about the end of the road.
There's an
for
extra
Mr.
vowel
Bascom
in there
Blacksmith.
somewhere.
Oh, sorry, polio.
Or so it seemed.
It's a bad sport
He
to
came
play.
back home to our town, and I think he was one of the unhappiest men I ever saw.
This was before
when he
Prozac, of
finally
course.
ran out of horses to work on. Until one fine day, a new family arrived. And the lady
The
of
Manson
house
family.
asked if there was anybody around who could make her a pair of new iron gates.
Oh, I'm glad he said iron
Clean
gates.
stone pillars out
The
front.
pearly gates?
Yeah.
They told her about Bascom, and you know he made her the
Baskin
prettiest
Robbins?
gates in the county.
He made
After
the gates
that,
out of
he got
horses.
so many orders for iron gates that he could
Everyone
hardly keep
shrieked
up.
in terror. The
They were
Just
held
town.
goes
together
to
by
show
horse
that
glue.
if a man has a trade and he works at it, he'll get along. And that's something worth considering, isn't it?
Sure it is.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
All right.
A blacksmith should, a blacksmith should be making swords and not gates. That's all I'm going to say.
Right.
Is that your official Ren Fair position?
Okay, that is the nerd in me. That is the Ren Fair person. That is, I don't know.
Just on principle?
Yeah, tradesman. I'm a
If you
tradesman.
can.
I am a tradesman by trade. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And if I'm not making swords, then I don't know what I'm doing with my life. And I'm not going to be killing horses. So I don't know what I'm going to do.
So the record we're going to do today, it's actually one that we've done before.
Mm-hmm.
One of the very first records we've done, it was Earl Goldsmith, Teach Your Sons About Sex. Woo!
Yep. And I am super excited about this because this record, in listening to this in Steve's garage, was the genesis for this podcast.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're right. It was.
He showed me this record that he found, and I looked at him, and I was like, there's no way that this record actually exists. Like, you bought a joke cover that just has a polka album on the inside.
Right.
And
It's really just Frank Zappa or something.
Right, exactly. It's a Metallica record or something. Led
that
Zeppelin.
honestly would have made more sense than this record actually being made and used. But yeah, we listened to it and like just wide-eyed, amazed that this was real. And
Yeah.
we were like, people have to be able to hear this somehow.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was like 3 years prior to starting this. But yeah, I distinctly remember sitting in our garage and just making comments, just like we do on this podcast.
Absolutely.
Just going like, "Oh my gosh, would you know?" Just riffing and stuff on it. Then it was just crazy, ridiculous,
Right. And then
and very fun.
Right. And the other interesting and fun thing is this was, I believe, the second or third record that we did.
Yeah,
So we have made the decision to revisit this and have the opportunity to compare.
right.
So I am truly excited for this. Eric, I'm glad you're here to be able to
Thank you.
to bring
Yeah.
some joy to this. And Cameron, you're here too.
Yeah,
There it is.
And he's my son, so this is going to be awkward.
Oh yeah. I'm glad that you guys have that.
This is actually two birds with one stone. You don't have to explain it to him.
Right.
You just
He
press
has to
play.
listen to the record.
Exactly.
Which is oddly enough what Earl Goldsmith just asks us to do.
Okay.
To just play the record.
Exactly. So you know, I'm also interested in knowing what this whole thing's about.
But that's the story of Earl Goldsmith. So without further ado, let's drop the needle and get this going.
It is a wonderful thing that you're taking time out of a busy schedule to consider
no worries,
the
Earl.
needs. The old adage asks, snips and snails and puppy dogs' tails.
French-Korean
Is that
fusion.
what little boys are made of? If, in the purchase of this material, you hope to relieve yourself of some
I did that before
important
we started.
responsibilities, it is proper for me to warn you that your responsibilities to your son may be increased by the use of this material. To stimulate a boy's thinking and
Earl,
any proper
behave.
questions asked because of this stimulation convinces me that this information can be a help.
Now I'm
When he comes
uncomfortable.
to you with his questions, you may see this as a personal hazard.
Oh, yes, and I will run the other way.
When you can't answer him forthrightly, promise him the requested information and find it from some reputable source.
Internet.
Give it to him at your earliest convenience. May I also suggest two other very important items.
Beer and
Listen
drugs.
to your son's side of this presentation before he does. If possible, take the time for a couple of thoughtful hearings,
In court.
then listen to your son's side as he listens. If you can locate appropriate sketches or
like SNL.
diagrams
Yeah.
of male and female sex organs,
I think
have
Hefner
them
has that
available
covered.
to show your son
Yeah.
as you audit his side of the record with him. Modern-day educators are concerned over whose responsibility it is to educate a child about love and sex.
It's MTV
Three
according to
major
my
sources of
childhood.
information on
Sounds
sex
about right.
knowledge are the home, the school, and the church.
Or the internet.
Or the boys'
Down
locker
through the
room.
years,
And
it
your
has
local
taken
bowling alley.
intelligence, courage, and a straightforward attitude to deal
All things
with
that I
such a
lack.
delicate matter. As parent and counselor, it seems to me that the problem is not receiving sex education too early,
Like the age of
but at the
5.
center lies the problem of receiving sex information from an improper source.
A van down by the
proverb that
river.
applies is knowledge is better than mystery.
Unless you're Scooby-Doo, of
Conceivably,
course.
Home, school, and church should link forces in favor of our children and their needs.
It really feels wrong to let a
Sex
priest talk
education
to
is
young
not
boys
giving
about
a
sex.
child a book
Yes.
to read that has pictures of the various organs of both sexes.
Well,
It
there
is
goes
not
the Scholastic
playing of
Book
a
Club.
record when a boy
Perhaps
or
an old
girl
Sears
reaches a
catalog?
certain
Yeah, that too.
indefinable stage of life. It is not
That's your
assuming
whole
that
thing,
your
Earl.
child knows the facts of life.
The facts
Sex
of life.
Education is a continuing process. This process begins at birth and continues through life. Every time your child is aware of some sexual difference,
Every
he is
time?
involved in that learning process. This process may well include telling, reading, and listening.
Or YouTube
In its best
tutorials.
setting, the education of your son should take place daily as he becomes acquainted with himself
A
and
good
the world
practice for
about
the single
him with
life.
respect to his sexual nature.
The morning would
Parents and educators,
suffice.
we are prone to leave out some part of sex education because of a problem marked taboo.
Oh, I have a taboo,
Remember,
but
many of the
I don't want to talk
sex-related
about it.
problems that your child may
But,
face will be complicated by his ignorance of the facts.
Yeah, that's the
It is
problem.
hoped
Like
that this
how long it takes a
presentation
plumber
will
to
deal
show
with
up.
your own reluctance to face up to your responsibility in the matter of your son's education, as well as provide a proper stimulus
Like National
for
Geographic?
effective thinking
Or Good
in a
Housekeeping.
young
What?
boy's life. Without well-defined objectives in life and family education, the way to a rich and full experience for our children will be poorly marked. Beyond the area of accurate information, there lies the purpose of affecting attitudes and conduct related to the desirable adjustment of the two sexes.
I'm referring, of
Emotional,
course, to Bow
spiritual,
Chicka
and
Wow
social
Wow.
factors involved are of equal or greater importance than the child's acquisition of information on the physical aspects of sex
He's hot.
and human reproduction. 4 goals appear to be in view.
Do the letters
First
T and
is
A come
physical.
to mind?
The second, emotional. The third, spiritual. And last of all, there is the social facet.
I know mine
The
leaks.
following may be
Facet?
identified
Oh,
in the light
thought I
of
said
all
faucet.
4 objectives. Number 1, an adequate knowledge of sex and reproduction, including the physical characteristics of both male and female reproductive organs.
Banana?
An
Bagel?
understanding of the role that sex plays
breakfast.
Did he say role
in
play?
the development
No, but
of
I'm sure he
his
said sex
personality.
plays.
The recognition of sex as a force, either for good or evil, evil, for the enrichment of life, or destructive, and a major contributing force for human misery. An explanation of sexual feelings that are experienced through the years that lead to maturity.
And crying.
An approach that will free our boys and girls from inner conflicts and unwholesome inhibitions. A control over the emotions that are
so he's the dominant
related
type.
to
Shocker.
sexual behavior. An accepted set of standards with which the individual can live in spiritual harmony, which will lay down a framework on which to build a satisfying sex relation in a family setting.
Whoa, Earl, whoa.
Expectation of a happy life in either
worst
sexual
callback.
role.
Yeah.
As husband and father or wife and mother.
I'm sorry, a sexual role as a father?
Let him finish.
That's what she said.
Of social responsibility. A planned and gradual emotional, physical, and spiritual independence from parents.
Don't be Oedipus.
The age
please
limits
don't.
of this
You
presentation
kiss your mother with that mouth?
include some of the objectives stated. It should be recognized, however, that all 10 objectives should be met during the teen
10?
years.
No pressure,
A
though.
religious zealot is reported to have said, "I find it hard to reconcile sex with the purity of God."
Somebody's a
This poor man
virgin.
spent his entire career trying to understand why God instituted sex. His prime concern focused upon the process of human reproduction.
And not
Why
recreation,
he
clearly.
believed it should have been non-sexual.
Dude played too much D&D.
Hey, I played-
Scriptures.
Yeah, okay.
First being redemption, by which God enables man to be reclaimed. The second is reproduction. In the early chapters of the Bible, there are at least 5 references where God commands his creation be fruitful and multiply.
But not square
The
root.
cynic who continues to question sex
Has never
and its
had it.
reasonableness does so in the face of the Scriptures, the facts of life, and the purposes for which sex is given. Unlike
Like a
the
7.
animal, man is a sexual creature in order that he might have a
You ever seen
special
2
way
dogs
to
at a park?
demonstrate
Well,
his
they
love.
definitely have a certain style.
Someone has
No,
this
boys, no,
practice
bad.
in an acceptable connotation as 2 married people in love,
Or
presenting
just really good
themselves to
friends.
each other physically, emotionally, and spiritually for the other partner's benefit. Obviously, man is a sexual creature capable of reproducing himself. Thus, an
Yeah,
expression of love
no.
between husband and wife may result in a life being brought into existence.
That's just the worst thing you can do.
An oft-overlooked reason for sexual differences in men and women is related
Is having
to
2
the
choices on an application.
in the fulfillment that should characterize adequate sex relations within the marriage bond.
So
There is
romantic.
provided a very important emotional release.
Yeah, there is.
This is not to say that emotions are not expressed in other ways, such as anger, fear, or tears.
Or tears for
the married
fears.
couple,
Or
there
beers
is
from
an
peers.
additional outlet of mutually satisfying sexual experiences. Let
Oh,
us
I hope
imagine
so.
a steel wire represents the human mind.
Still wire.
Attached to that wire
Straight
is a
line.
weight that represents the individual self and the sum total of all his experiences and his present environment. Take Mr. and Mrs. A, for example. John A is quite a worrier.
I
On the wire that represents his mind, there hangs a weight which represents his problems. It weighs 10 tons. Mrs.
16
A also
tons.
bears the weight of
What
all
do
her
you get?
experiences. And because her anxieties are less than her husband's, the weight she carries may be 5 tons. At the
That's all
instant
water
of
weight.
mutual or nearly mutual
This sounds like one of those weird
fulfillment
math
in their
problems.
sexual
Like, Mr. A leaves on a train going 50 miles an hour, and Miss A drives a bus going 30 miles an hour. Which one gets to Dallas first?
Oh, Mr. A will always arrive first.
What a mystery.
When the weight is lifted in each life. A good marriage should provide this important emotional release. Your
But only
understanding
emotional.
of these basic factors concerning the reasons for sex can help you guide your son to a wholesome understanding of such important factors.
And helps explain why
The
mommy and
generation
daddy are
of which
playing
your son
leapfrog.
is apart faces an unprecedented age of sexual stimulation. A veritable barrage of sex and sex symbols.
Like David
will be directed
Hasselhoff.
toward
In
him
that
his
weird
concept
Prince
of life.
phase.
That
Add
was
to
a weird
this
symbol.
the natural curiosity that you would expect from a growing boy, and a new sense of responsibility will begin to dawn upon you.
Don't
It
raise
is well to
a
remember
freak.
that the so-called facts of life have not changed.
Yeah, Blair and
The
Tootie
age
will
in which
always
these
be there.
facts are shared
They always
has
like Joe.
changed, and in turn the atmosphere in which these facts are revealed contributes or detracts from the emotional well-being of your child.
Okay, so like 7.
Facts in themselves are cold and impersonal.
Like
To
Earl.
deal with these facts as a child's natural curiosity develops creates the needed climate to
Did he say
translate
climax?
them
You know good and
into
well
language.
he didn't.
Oh.
Natural curiosity should show itself through questions asked in a natural fashion.
Like, why are there
4 major
mirrors on the
areas of
ceiling?
classification have been noted
We're
by
making a movie
educators
tonight.
in this field. They are, number 1, pregnancy and prenatal development. Number 2, birth and early feeding of a child.
3 a.m.
Number
is
3,
the worst.
Conception and how it takes place. Number 4, sexual differences related to mating.
Yep, I
Who
made
should
my
have
socks.
babies,
Yep. You know who should have babies?
seminal
Women.
emission, and
No, right.
miscellaneous subjects. As you can see, an attempt has been made to place the questions of your son into well-defined categories.
Category
It is
1,
well to
go
note
ask
that
your
the
mom.
arrangement is not in sequence.
Your
For
friend,
example,
Chaos.
pregnancy and birth are followed by conception.
Wait, you can get pregnant
This
from
stems
that?
the fact that the child is prone to question that which he observes first.
Which is why
Logical
doors have
thought
locks.
process.
Mhm.
Correction. Logical
Good job,
thought
Earl.
processes may then lead him
He was
to
premature there.
question the origin of a baby. The order of the areas questioned is significant in that the opposite sex and its characteristics come into prominent view.
Ooh la la.
To understand only male sexual characteristics and functions. His natural curiosity will lead him to raise questions
Among
about
other
the female
things.
body and its functions.
Parts like,
Subject of
comma,
sexual differences
and,
may well be raised during questions about pregnancy and conception. Because there is a wide spectrum of stimuli provided from one family setting to another, it is impossible to anticipate when and where such questions will be raised.
Church,
cookouts.
Bar
Your son
mitzvahs.
has an inborn curiosity about himself and the world about him.
just keep that
If his
curiosity in your
questions
pants.
concerning his body and its functions go unanswered, he will find the answers elsewhere. If his questions are not answered honestly, he will develop suspicions concerning himself instead of the trust he so desperately needs.
Desperately
years of
wanting.
time,
You are
an
not better
amazing
than Ezra.
experience
On
in
two!
encounter
Boys,
who seriously
Sorry,
lack
he started.
detailed information concerning intimate things. Consequently, the simplest of terms have been necessary in attempting to lay down a framework upon which an understanding
And blanket.
relationship could be
Mhm.
built. The use of highly technical words may aid the counselor, but such use may leave the counselee without the information he needs.
Yeah, don't say phallus. Just
Your
use Wizzywinkle.
responsibility as a parent is to know and use the proper terms, making the explanation or description
penguin.
of such terms as simple as you can.
The galloping
In
horse.
addition to the will to help your son, your next most vital asset is your ability to communicate effectively.
You know, your mom
Boy
really
who
likes
knows
it.
little. The boy who knows little.
Well, never mind.
Someone has said, from little comes little.
I was in the
In many
pool.
cases, this search for information may be described as, from nothing, nothing comes.
That's what my wife
It is
says.
essential for you as a parent to understand your son's pattern of development. During these preteen years, your son is learning the skills that are necessary for physical games.
Like
He is
Parcheesi.
developing
Ooh,
a
boggle.
concept of himself that he will tend to carry through life. At this stage of growth and development, his peer group will become very important.
It will shame
You
him
should
too.
see him emerging with characteristics that are easily recognized as boyish. Intellectually,
prone
this
to
is the
giving
time for an
condescending
adequate
explanations.
framework to be laid down in his life so that he can develop skills in the 3 R's.
Reading,
An
writhing, and
adequate concept
arithmetic.
of life and its realities developed in this pre-adolescent period. And finally, his sense of moral values will be established during this age. Each age grouping through early adulthood is important. However, the foregoing should impress you with the seriousness
He said
of the
foregoing.
needs of your son
Oh, Steve.
at his present age. Perhaps you've noted that sex as such is not mentioned in the list we've quoted.
I'm beginning to think
However,
Earl
it
doesn't
is
know
an
what it
underlying
means.
factor
Me too.
and is closely tied to physical, emotional, and spiritual development. Water rises no higher than its source.
What does that
Also true of knowledge. Your son's concept of sex and related matters will not be better or more adequate than yours.
Yeah, I think we all hope
Here are
that.
some points to ponder. First, be certain you have a good grasp of the facts yourself.
Oh, glad he
Number
said
2,
facts.
Me
Consider the
too.
pitfalls you might have avoided if someone had helped you as you intend to help your son.
Vines, gold,
Number
alligators.
Nah, different
Avoid
pitfall.
a double standard
Oh.
for your own behavior. Our children are more alert to our real concepts than you think. Number 4, distinguish between that which is genuinely amusing and that which is vulgar.
Like
Number
farts?
5,
Amusing.
be
What about-
sincere in your attitude
Oh,
toward intimate
very
things,
vulgar,
and you will
Brian.
engender the
Okay.
necessary
Good to know.
confidence your son should place in you. Number 6, don't overlook the spiritual overtones because sex seems to be bound
There he goes with
physical
bondage again.
and emotional development.
He holds on to that tightly.
Here then are some questions to answer. Do you shrink from accepting
I was.
responsibility
No,
for
we
giving
did that
sexual
already.
information
Sorry.
to your child? Should mothers help their daughters and fathers assist their sons in this vital area?
No,
Will
mothers
giving
should do it
honest
all.
answers to sex questions encourage your child to be too interested in sexual matters?
I think the answer is yes.
Are you embarrassed when you see affection demonstrated?
Should
Are
I
you
not
ever
be?
ashamed about your own interest in sex?
Sometimes.
I'm just
Would you
ashamed
prefer
afterwards.
Your child should read a book or listen to a record on sex in place of talking to him personally?
Yes.
The best answer for all 6 questions is no.
Oh,
And as
we
you
all
think
failed.
Through your feelings, you should uncover the reason for whatever reluctance you experience in this area.
Free your
In the light of
mind, and
these
the
points
rest
to
will
ponder
follow.
and questions to answer, what are my basic obligations to my child? To assist in your ability to recall, let us say you owe your son 5 A's. The
Adidas?
first one is atmosphere. Atmosphere is that which
whiner,
a family
diner?
No.
creates in the process
Okay.
of daily living. Each member of the family makes his or her contribution, but the adults in the home carry the major responsibility.
Hashtag
Your family
adulting
unit has
sucks.
the need for a climate in which each member can be comfortable as a person, get along reasonably well with others,
Unless they
and
like
have
it
a sense
rough.
of individuality, that is, a feeling of importance and being needed. Attitudes and atmosphere are inseparably bound together.
Handcuffs.
Adult attitudes set the climate for the home. As parents, your attitude toward any subject will form the basis for action or reaction on the part of other members of the family unit.
Including if I
You
think
or your
Nickelback is
spouse
a good band or
have a
not.
close
They're
mind on
not.
sharing
I know.
information on sex. Your children are
Sorry, I
likely
get
to
emotional
sense
about
and
that.
even share those feelings. The third has to do with answers because they follow close on the heels of your attitudes.
I mean, it depends on
It
the
is
position,
unusual
but
for
sure.
a child not to ask questions. If he does not ask you, several reasons may exist.
He's a
He may be
teenager.
afraid of you.
Yeah.
Conceivably, you might laugh at him.
Oh,
Or
definitely.
you might not see his question as seriously as he does.
Totally.
These conclusions are generally reached on the basis of your previous responses to your son's queries.
Silence
Honest
and
answers
crying.
are the outgrowth of your honest attitude toward the
And honest
subject
Abe.
of sex. The advent of the stork or the birds and bees type of response
Or all three
may
in
be
a threesome.
quite
I don't.
transparent to a young child in our highly sexualized society. There is no excuse at any age for myths and fables about sex.
So give him the hard
Number
stuff.
4 is appropriate sensitivity.
Aww.
Appropriate sensitivity suggests awareness of your son's immediate need. Where he stands now with respect to accurate information on sexual matters
Which is a
will make
much
your
different
current
Urkel
contribution
show.
to his
Right.
learning process meaningful. Assuming your family unit has a good climate
said
for
family.
free discussion on any subject, it will not be difficult to see to what degree he comprehends the following: pregnancy and prenatal development, birth and early feeding of a child, conception and how it takes place, and the relationship of sexual
Back in the back
differences
of a Volkswagen.
as we have described them, related to mating, who should have babies, menstruation, and seminal emission.
Like the wheat?
Your sensitivity
No,
to the
not
level of
even
your
close.
boy's comprehension will be a great assist in helping him further. Number 5 is action.
Oh, like dodge,
Actions
parry,
and
thrust.
activities
Are we
the direct
fencing?
product
I mean, kind
the
of.
atmosphere and attitudes of the home and the individuals who comprise it. A sense of duty to discuss does not have the motivating force of facing a challenge to help in the learning process. Children in their developing minds are alert to the consistency of actions when compared with current attitudes.
All 30 seconds
Such
of it.
inconsistency can be illustrated by the
In
parent
crayon or marker.
who insists on honesty from his child, but encourages him to lie about his age when purchasing tickets on the bus.
Or buying
Your
beer
actions
like a normal
should
person.
coincide with the attitudes you are attempting to create in the home.
Wait, small children rode the bus
Learning
alone in the
process is dependent
50s?
Evidently.
on the child's questions. When he does not state his questions orally, you may ask, "What do we do then?"
Hand stuff?
You may be interested
Like
to know
ASL,
the
you
reason
pervs.
for your son's apparent
gosh.
silence.
Emotional
Current
terror.
family circumstances
Your
may not
response,
lead him
probably.
to think about sex. Not having faced the prospect of the advent of a baby sister or brother,
So borrow one.
lack of family pets with babies of their own, may have deprived your son of the opportunity to observe.
Call him
If your son
Timex, 'cause
sees
he
sex
likes
as
to
dirty,
watch.
he may have found answers to his questions outside the family circle. Remember, the silence of your child on the subject does not relieve you of your responsibility to provide information through effective communication.
Dang it!
Recommended
Son of a-
methods of encouraging questions are the use of the arrival of a baby in the neighborhood as an opportunity to discuss the hows and wheres.
So
Number 2,
invite
discuss
myself
some
to
basic
baby
concepts
showers?
regarding reproduction in animals, leading into an understanding of human body functions.
Questions like,
Number
so what
3,
is penguin style?
Well, it's when you wear a
possibility of
tux and do it under.
expecting a
I mean,
baby
I don't know.
should be and could be used as a starter.
See,
Should you
Bobby,
feel
your aunt and
inadequate in
uncle took a
using
trip
these
to Pound
suggestions,
Town.
the best method for you might be a relating of your son's birth, your thoughts and expectations
'Cause they remember.
prior to his
Mhm.
arrival, and a gradual attempt to raise significant questions in his mind.
And shake
The
his
natural
emotional
repetition
foundation
of
to the
your
core.
son's own
Right.
story may well provide the answers to questions he felt he could or should not ask.
Like any.
The husband and wife who are openly and honestly affectionate with one another
Just
Get a
sloppy
room.
with
teaching
it.
their children to love and to be loved. Because love is a learned response.
Loving lovers,
your
loving
son
love.
must see a demonstration of
Love
affection
it.
which he can copy.
Mimeography.
Facts of life and
Mimeography,
love
yeah,
are
exactly.
cold words unless they are related to a dynamic show of true affection. Teaching him how to be affectionate without an illustration may be likened to a carpenter building a house without a blueprint.
Like Karma
Many of the
Sutra?
principles given
no,
here will
never mind.
increase
No.
the potential for happiness in each member of the family, in addition to providing important instruction in living for your son. In conclusion, let me remind
he's
you that
finally at
man
the
was
end.
made a
He's gonna
special
finish.
creature
That's what she said.
because he was to be able to have a deep expression of his love for his partner, to enable him to
Reproducing
reproduce
himself. Steve Taylor?
Yeah,
and to
Steve Taylor
enjoy
for the
a
win.
Special emotional outlet in the marriage bond. May you be enabled to better understand the facts of life for yourself and be able
Love
to
that
teach your
show.
offspring by precept and example that life and love can be very satisfying.
Ooh, can you feel his warmth and sensuality?
Yeah, you could frost a beer with his warmth.
Right. As we always ask these records, what are 3 things we can learn from this?
Well, I think the first one should just be sex is easier to do than it is to talk about with your kids.
Mostly, yeah.
You know, it should be.
I feel like as a consensus, yes.
Mhm.
I also feel like, first timers, it's kind of a 50-50.
Yeah.
I remember my youngest son, Austin, when he was in junior high, they did the, class in biology about birds and the bees and all that stuff. And so, he came home and told us about that and everything else. And so I just calmly said, well, if you have any questions or anything over the next couple of days, just let me know, whatever. And so later on the evening, he just kind of scaredly looked at me and goes and says, I don't have any questions.
I know too much. I've seen things, Daddy.
I'm having nightmares. But it's just funny. I don't have any questions. I'm good.
I want to applaud Earl for seeing that there was a problem out there.
Sure, sure.
But the observation that I made when we first did this, I believe still holds up. If you are somebody who is uncomfortable with the idea of talking to your child about sex, you are probably not going to buy them a record that explicitly talks about sex.
Right.
Listen to it first, and then listen to it with them in the room, and then talk about it with them after.
Well, you know everything I know now, so let's just get going with this.
All right, we're all done.
Yeah.
And obviously, if you're nervous about doing that, you're probably in the normal.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I mean, it's not every day.
It's not like you're going to, talk to a kid about some great movie you just saw.
Mhm.
It's a little bit more awkward.
All right. Well, guys, once again, thank you for listening. And as a reminder, not all records should be collected. Thank you.
The Vinyl Word podcast is written by Brian Mayer, Steve Beach, and Eric Evans. It's produced by Steve Beach and Cameron Beach. The Vinyl Word podcast is hosted and distributed by Buzzsprout.